This week on Morning Mika, meet the men who think they know more about women's bodies than women do.
But the fact that I was able to terminate Roe v. Wade after 50 years of trying, they worked for 50 years. I've never seen anything like it. They worked, and I was so honored to have done it.
I am grateful. We celebrate the overturning of Roe and the returning of this decision to the people, and I think ultimately that's going to be good for our nation, and I think God's going to bless it, to be honest.
I believe in a culture of life. I was proud to sign the Heartbeat Bill.
Ron DeSantis may be proud to be anti-health care, but MAGA Mike and Donald Trump and the entire Republican Party will have to defend that position at the ballot box this November. We'll dig into Florida's extreme ban on a medical procedure that in many cases saves women from deadly infections, septic shock, bleeding out, and worse. Will the GOP's acid trip back to the 70s cost them control of Congress and the White House? That's the question. I'm Mika Brzezinski here with Simone Sanders Townsend, Huma Abedin, and Jen Psaki. Good to have everybody back together again.
Good to be here.
We're going to begin, in Florida, where the state Supreme Court just allowed for a 15-week abortion ban, opening the door for an even more strict 6-week abortion ban to take effect next month. That is, unless enough people there vote in favor of a referendum on the November ballot that would enshrine into law the personal freedom to make their own decisions about their health care. Look, we know the medical risks when terminations are banned. They are specific and they are life-threatening. And yet this is where the conversation goes when Republican politicians get involved.
If a child is halfway delivered out of the birth canal, is it permissible to have an abortion? Would you support the right for an abortion then?
I can't even fathom that ever.
I'm not asking you if you can fathom it. If it occurred, would you support that abortion or not? That's unrestricted abortion, right?
It's a question that I can't imagine. Just like you probably can't imagine what you would do if your daughter was raped.
And there's not a doctor that would do it, and it only happens in
Mika,
extremely severe circumstances. You can come back and bring me the evidence of women across the state of New Jersey having abortions in the 9th month. It's not happening, Chris. Come on.
Mika, let me say this. Mika, it's what the law is.
Jen Psaki, do you think voters, it's so hard, it's so difficult. Are voters, though, buying these straw man arguments from the right?
I mean, I don't know if I love Dr. Robinson at that hearing or you completely tongue-tying Chris Christie over abortion more, Mika, watching that. Look, I think what we know from polls is that voters are not buying this. Democratic vote, not just Democratic voters, independents by overwhelming majorities, including a Fox News poll. Republicans are even close to, they're just under 50% in that poll about whether they would support a national federal law protecting abortion access. And his support for abortion access has increased since Dobbs because absurd arguments like the one Mike Johnson is making kind of fly in the face of what most women out there know. Women who have gone to the gynecologist, women who have known people who've had an abortion, women who have known people who have had fertility issues or have had non-viable pregnancies. Women are not stupid. And I think until Republicans and many of these Republican men realize that and start talking about this issue as health care, nobody's going to take them seriously. I shouldn't say nobody, but the majority is not going to take them seriously.
Huma, a 6-week ban. I mean, talk about what women in Florida will face. There are consequences.
There are consequences that is potentially a health care crisis in this country. And to Jen's point, we're talking about a state in Florida where we know 67% of Florida voters, a poll shows 67% of Florida voters believe in reproductive rights. And Florida follows a state like Texas, one of the most restrictive abortion laws in that state. And I think it's all the more reason you look at these theoretical questions that these men are asking women, and then you compare that to the real stories. Every time Amanda Zarowski from Texas, the lead plaintiff suing the state of Texas, tells her story, we know exactly what happens when a woman is forced to carry a fetus, a non-viable fetus, to term, almost dies. There are thousands of stories throughout the country, and every time you turn on the TV and hear them, I think this is really going to ignite even more of a visceral reaction from women. It doesn't matter if you're a Democrat, Republican, or independent. If you are a human listening to the stories and you believe in the future of our nation and the next generation, you have to take this on very seriously in November.
So, Simone, under Florida law, the measure will have to receive the support of 60% of voters in November, not a simple majority to pass. Concerned?
I am not concerned, and I think that 60% threshold is actually important. Look, perhaps, not even perhaps, maybe 10 years ago when we were having this conversation, the conversation about weeks and whatnot and gestational age, that I think was a salient point. But we are at a different point in America because of the Dobbs decision to overturn Roe versus Wade. And this is now not about weeks. This is about whether you and your doctor can make the decisions for your health care decisions for you or legislators in the state capital of your state. And so in Florida, when it comes to the ballot initiative, that is what this is about. And everywhere that abortion has been on the ballot since the overturning of Roe versus Wade with the Dobbs decision, abortion has won in Kansas, in Ohio, in Michigan. And so this year, it'll be on the ballot in Florida. It looks like it will also be on the ballot in Arizona. And I think that voters are going to go to the ballot box and vote to protect their ability for they and their doctors to make the decisions about their health care, and not some politicians in the state capitol that they've never met.
Right. So what's the impact at the ballot box? According to the Biden campaign, it means Florida just got a lot more interesting. The president's reelection team thinks the Sunshine State is winnable this November, citing the GOP's extreme agenda as one of the reasons why. As Simone mentioned, after all, abortion health care has galvanized voters nationwide in recent months, from Kansas and Kentucky to Michigan and Montana. You know, the threats posed to abortion health care would be even greater if not for the leadership of women like Cecile Richards. The former Planned Parenthood chief has been on the front lines for decades, even now, as she battles brain cancer. She is using her social platforms to offer guidance to a new generation of women, teaching them to organize, advocate, educate, and yes, know their value. Here's part of the message that she shared with me after the Florida decision was handed down.
Hi, Mika. Thanks for giving me the chance to talk about what's happening in Florida right now, because life for women in Florida turned upside down this week. The state Supreme Court handed down a ruling that means a 6-week ban will be allowed to take effect on May 1st. At 6 weeks, most people don't even know that they're pregnant. We've seen again and again that banning or restricting abortion has sweeping consequences for health care. Laws like the one that will soon take effect in Florida make it harder to get prenatal care and to give birth safely, especially for women of color. Abortion restrictions drive OBGYNs out of entire states and create maternity care deserts and put people's lives and health at risk. The good news is voters in Florida will have the chance to reject this abortion ban this November. That's thanks to all of the volunteers and organizers who gathered nearly 1 million signatures to put this issue on the ballot. An overwhelming majority of Floridians and a majority of Americans believe that pregnancy decisions are personal. That's why every chance voters have had to weigh in on this issue, abortion rights have won. To say that this has the potential to impact races up and down the ballot in Florida is an understatement.
So Cecile Richards there, and she also texted me a whole bunch of stuff, but this is one other thing she said. I'm hoping to spend my time highlighting the experiences for people in the states that have banned and restricted abortion, which will now include Florida, so that we can create more understanding and empathy and a wave of righteous anger at the polls in November. EXO, Cecile, Jen, with women like her working on the front lines, I think it might be possible that voters send a resounding message.
First of all, the cut piece that you showed and just hearing Cecile talk is just such a reminder of what a powerful, powerful voice she has been and continues to be, I should say, on abortion access and women's health. She's remarkable. You know, I think what's so important, so many things of what she said, is to remember to not always frame this as a partisan issue. It is not a partisan issue. We're talking about women and choices about their own bodies and health care. The people who are predominantly impacted, as she just said, are communities of color, women of color. Also, lower income communities, where the only place they can get access to health care, and I don't just mean abortion access, the majority of what Planned Parenthood does is pap smears, regular checkups and things like that, is through organizations like Planned Parenthood and through providers that are under threat right now. And I think that kind of broad, inclusive message is so important, even as we should boldly be talking about women's rights and to have access to abortion. But that's part of the important message I think she conveys so effectively.
Absolutely. And Simone, I want to know what you're thinking about the opportunity here is for Democrats, specifically in Florida and nationwide. But in a state like Florida, they're going to be living out this nightmare, given the strict 6-week, oh, my God, ban. I mean, so there are going to be real-time experiences to draw from, unfortunately.
Literally in the lead up to an election. I think that I know that in the last midterm elections and then in the last general, folks were like, oh, Florida. And I said Florida is special, and it is. And I think Florida can get back to a place that is absolutely winnable for Democrats. And I think there is a path here. It might be a narrow path, but there's a path. And I think what is happening in the state in terms of what the local elected officials and the local organizers have been doing. I want to remind folks, the mayor of Jacksonville is a woman for the first time in the history of Jacksonville, and she's a Democrat. And Jacksonville was literally the most populous city in the country, Republican city, largest Republican city in the country until that happened. And so organizing makes a difference. And I think abortion and reproductive freedom is an opportunity for Democrats across the country. There's two prominent political parties right now, and there is one that is all about protecting you and your ability to make decisions in your own life, and then another one trying to tell you what to do in your life, especially if you're a woman. Okay, so folks can make their decisions at the ballot box.
Yeah, Huma, your thoughts, especially since during the midterms, it seems abortion politics undercut that red wave everyone was expecting.
Well, I agree with everything Simone just said, and I don't think, in fact, I think the opposite. I think that anybody who's out there talking to our fellow Democrats who are worried about there being a lack of enthusiasm, I think this issue in particular will motivate women and Americans, frankly, to come and vote and also just kind of remind us what's really at stake in this country, and it's the future of our families and our children. And I'm feeling very optimistic. You look at, Simone just mentioned Arizona might have Florida on the ballot. There might be 8 additional states, including Colorado, Arkansas, some of these very red states that there's still a push to have abortion on the ballot. And if we're successful, that's just more states and more women and more people out there motivated on this issue.
Our rights are at stake, and I want them back for our daughter.
Hey, everyone. MSNBC has a new and improved app. You'll get real-time alerts and analysis, live blogs, in-depth essays, video highlights, and the best 2024 election coverage. Download the new MSNBC app. Here's how to do it. You tap on the App Store on your phone. You hit search on the bottom right corner. You type in MSNBC. You click on the MSNBC app. You click on Get or the cloud icon and enjoy it.